In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, to whom we all have to turn back. Honorable listeners and respectable audience, you know that we have started a series of linguistics. In linguistics, we have commenced the chapter which is known as syntax. Syntax is the study of the structure of the sentence. Listeners and audience, after the completion of the chapter, we started different theories and syntax, like we discussed generative grammar, binding theory. Listeners and audience, today I'm going to talk about binding domain and binding theory. As in the previous lecture, I taught you three principles of binding theory. What is the first principle? The first principle is that, for example, an author must be bound. Next principle is that pronouns must be free. And the third principle is that about our expression, that our expression must be free. But again, our principles will be incomplete wherever we are not further extending this topic. So that's why our topic is, which we are talking today, that is binding domain and binding theory. Binding domain and binding theory. So for example, I'm writing a sentence talking about principle A. What is principle A? Principle A says that N of 4 must be free. I'm writing a sentence, Aslam hate himself. Listeners and audience, in this sentence you see himself is anaphor and it refers back to Aslam, and Aslam is the antecedent of himself. But now, and this is true and it also explains our principle A, that anaphor must be bound. So here anaphor is bound. Okay. Now, what about this sentence? Aslam said that himself was busy. Aslam said that himself was busy. Now listeners and audience, the question arises, what about this sentence? If we said Aslam said that himself was busy. If we are taking Aslam, for example, this is one index, co-index, and then this is another co-index. So you see, here they are co-indexed, but again, the sentence is incorrect. The sentence is ill-formed. The question arises, why? Answer to this question is that himself, yes, himself is anaphor. But here himself is not valid for Aslam. Okay, if we are following our two conditions, for example, Aslam C command or NPC command, this NP, and these are also co-indexed because there is one index and there is another index. But again, the sentence is invalid, the sentence is incorrect. Here is actually answer to the question is that, here we have two classes. For example, Aslam said this is main class, and there is another class which we call embedded class, that himself was busy. So yes, if it is anaphor, but again this Aslam is not the antecedent of himself. One reason is that the sentence is incorrect because this is not referring to Aslam, this himself. And another thing is that we want to further extend this principle that anaphor must be bound within its domain. So here you see, Aslam said this is main class, and when we're talking about himself, it is in another class, it is an embedded class. That's why it is not, Aslam is not the antecedent of himself, and himself is not the anaphor of Aslam. If I'm writing another sentence, for example, Aslam said he studied himself. Now, listeners and writers, let's look at this example. Aslam said he studied himself. Yes, in this sentence we have anaphor and we also have antecedent. Now, himself is anaphor because it refers to he, and he is the antecedent of himself. And another thing is that here it is also follows principle A. That principle A mean anaphor must be bound. So here anaphor is bound and it is in its domain. So now again this principle A is now clear that anaphor must be pre but within its own domain. Sorry, anaphor must be bound within its own domain. Coming to principle B. What does principle B say? Principle B say anaphor must principle B say that pronouns must be pre. For example, if I say Aslam called him. Listeners and idols, you know, this is noun NP and this is verb and him, that is another NP. So you see this is pronoun and it is not referring to Aslam. This ham referring to some any other one, Akram or maybe other person. So that's why this is the clarification of our principle B that that a pronoun must be pre. Now, what about this sentence? Aslam said that he studied, for example. Now, listeners and audience, you see, Aslam said that he studied. Again, we say that a pronoun must be pre. But here, again, you see, Aslam said that he studied. This he is pronoun and this he refers back to Aslam. So, Aslam seems to be the antecedent of this pronoun. So, now here it is not pre. So, this sentence, according to principle B, the rules will be not valid here. But in reality, the sentence is correct because we are taking one index and another index, and then this NP C commands another NP. But again, what about our rule? What about principle B? Principle B say that a pronoun must be pre, but here a pronoun is what? A pronoun here is bound. Answer to this question is that as we explained it in principle A, yes, a pronoun must be pre, but within its own domain. As we say, Aslam called him. So here a pronoun is pre, but within its own domain. Here, Aslam said this is one main class and that he studied, this is another class, embedded class, because here we see CP and after that you want a complete sentence. So that's why a pronoun must be pre within its own domain. This is the domain, for example, of what? This is the domain of one sentence and this is the domain of another sentence. So here he is pronoun, but it is not, here this Aslam is not the domain of that sentence. So this is the explanation. And what about principle C, which we explained already, that or expression must be pre, but here we are adding another word with it as well, and that is or expression must be free everywhere in the sentence. This is all about today's topic. Hope that this topic is clear to you.